Now we're discussing about the third phase of cyclistic byteshare analysis, process phase, in which we have to do a three parts like checking the data types and then identifying and removing null values and then identifying duplicate values. And I'm using Microsoft SQL Server for SQL queries in this task. So let's start our task. Firstly, I've been importing my dataset which we have created in the prepare phase by using the same method of task and import flat files as I can use for early uploading. Now you have to uncheck this data types of in the preview pane, and now I've been uploading my dataset, but there is no column names that have been written and the data types might be a little bit changed. This is just because we have saved the same data from using SQL queries, so there's a little bit problem into my SQL server that I'm not getting the name of the columns that is in our dataset. Like, it not recognize the column names. It might be your dataset has recognized the column names. You can easily change the column names and then allowing null values and then checking the data types. And now I have uploading my dataset into my database of cyclistic byteshare. This is not some another kind of file. This is the file, a CSV file that we have created in the prepare phase by joining all the tables and the specific columns. It's taking a little bit more time because the file size is large. Now you can see our data set has been uploaded and we are checking the top 1000 rows of our data set. Now I'm writing the new query. For the process phase by checking the null values and identifying and removing the null values and duplicate values. And as I described earlier, we also have to check the data types, but we can check the data type in the previous phase, so we did not need to recheck it. Like when I'm uploading my dataset, I can check all the data types. So we have done this process, and now I'm identifying the null values by using select from and where class. I'm selecting all my dataset. And then I'm using the where statement in which I have to write the column name, and then using the function is null, like is there any null values in the dataset in this column, and also use OR method for using for the other columns. Now by using this query, I'm using firstly the column name and then is column for the first time, and then using OR function, and then this second column name, and then using the function of is null, using also for all the other columns, using the same method for all the other columns to seeing is there any null values in our dataset. By using this method, we can get all the rows that have the null values in all of the columns. By using this method, I can get the null values in all the columns like ride ID, rideable type, starting at, ended at, start station name, and end station name. By executing this query, we can get all the data that have null values. Now you can see our query is executing. It's taking a little bit of time. At the right hand side of our page, you can see the time, that how many times this query can execute, how many time this query take to execute. Now you can see there is no null values in our dataset. There might be an issue, or there might be exactly the no null values in our dataset. By using this method, you can see that is there any null values in your dataset. You can either use this method for for single columns, like in the select phase you have to use the ride ID, and then in the where phase you have to use ride ID is null. Same is for if you wanted to include to see the null values in just separate column, you can use the same query but just for the single columns. Now I'm identifying the duplicate values in our dataset. I'm using the comments by double slashing in between the words in between slashes. I'm using select statement by selecting all the columns, and then from our table that we have created, and then I'm using group by statement. But before that, I just wanted to write a query for if there is any null values in your dataset, then you can use this query to delete any kind of null values. For deleting any kind of null values in dataset, you do not need to use a select statement. You just have to delete from, and using where class, in which you have to define all the column names in which there is a null value. By using this query, you can delete all the null values in your dataset by using delete from your table and where class. When you execute this query, now as you can see in the first query, when we start this, that there is a no null values in dataset, so there is no null values there is no null rows that has been removed. But if there is any null values in your row, you can use this delete from statement to delete the null values in your dataset. Now we are coming toward our mid of the identifying duplicate values query. I'm adding the count of all values as duplicate count. I'm just adding this line into our select phase. And now in the group by statement, I'm adding all the column names in our dataset like ride ID, rideable type, start station name and station name, started at, ended at, and member casual. Now our whole dataset has been grouped by, and I'm using the having clause by identifying any null values like count of all as greater than when. Like by using this query, we can get the rows that have appearing more than once time in our dataset. And using count function as duplicate count, we can get all the values that has duplicated, like appearing more than one times. Now I'm executing my query. It is taking a little bit time, as you can see into the right hand corner. Now this query has been executing. And now as you can see, there is no duplicate values in our dataset. Now this is all our process phase in which we have to identify and delete, identify and remove null values, and then identify duplicate values, and also checking the data types that we have to done. Now I'm saving my query into my PC by using save button, as you can see in the blue button. This is all our task. Thank you.